The phone lines are open for your opportunity to speak your mind and give your opinion on the most influential music ever made. Your voice, your topics, your show. This is Free for All Friday with host Eddie Trunk.
And a happy Friday to you all. As we have reached the end of another week here on this 20th day of February 2026, it is Trunk Nation talking rock with you. Sirius XM 103 Faction Talk, live or on demand using the Sirius XM app. Get caught up on any shows from this past week over the weekend or whenever you want. Just dial them up on the app, punch in my name, punch in Trunk Nation. You will see stuff come up. Don't forget, on the YouTube channel, there is some new video added. The recent Dave Mustaine interview is up there now. Keep putting some other stuff up there as well. I do have an interview in the can with John Taylor, best known as the bass player in Duran Duran, but talking about the anniversary of the Power Station album. We are going to roll that out for you the end of next week. We'll premiere that here on the radio show, and then the video will go up shortly after that. We have that coming on video as well. Some other stuff coming too, so check out that video content as we start to add some of that up for you.
Zach Wild is coming to you this weekend. I'll have Zach over to you.
Oh, that should be a good one. People love that interview, so... is Zach's recent in-studio visit, which was a little over a week ago. Last Friday, we didn't do a Free-for-All Friday because we had Blackie Lawless in studio in L.A. Last Thursday, we had Zach in studio in L.A. Those were two great shows. Those are both on the app now. And we didn't get video on Blackie, but we have video on Zach. So as Joel just said, that'll be coming soon as well. But again, use that app, get caught up on anything, full shows, interviews, all that sort of good stuff. As we look ahead towards next week, usually as is the norm, Monday will probably be a free-for-all day, and barring any changes over the weekend, catch up coming off the weekend, hear from you guys about whatever you got into. And Tuesday, tentatively, we will probably know by the end of the show today, we may have Wolfgang Van Halen returning to the show as our first guest of the week. So working on that and waiting to hear on that, but that's looking likely for next week, maybe Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. So it looks like Wolf will be back with us, a regular guest on the show at this point. Always great to have him on board and see what's cooking. He's got a big tour coming up, so we'll get into all of that with him. I'll let you know exactly when that's going to happen as soon as it gets confirmed. Of course, today, all your calls, anything you want. And we, of course, left off yesterday with a theme topic show. First time ever doing your favorite dual threats, meaning one person that does two things in a band extremely well. Plays guitar, sings, plays bass, sings, plays drums, sings, plays keys and guitar equally well, whatever it was. I think predominantly it's singing and guitar playing. And we had some interesting stuff with that yesterday. Again, you can, if you missed that show, because I know we have people that can only listen live on Fridays because of their schedule or what have you. So if you missed that show, go grab it on the app. There may be spillover to that today, which is fine as well. But we'll get to the phones quickly on this Free for All Friday, because for a Friday, the news is extraordinarily light, which is unusual. So that'll give you more time as we'll get to the phones, hopefully a little quicker. Now, every time I say that, as soon as I get into whatever news we have, I start to go off a little bit, and you never know. But I'll try to get to your calls here as quickly as possible. So let me see. A quick note that I want to mention at the top of the show today. Last night I went to a show here in Vegas that I had seen before, but it was playing at a new venue. I'm not sure how many of you guys are familiar with the singer Frankie Perez, but Frankie has done some stuff in the metal world over the years, and he was the singer in that band Deadland Ritual that was fairly short-lived, but was a phenomenal group that featured Geezer Butler, Steve Stevens, and Matt Sorum. And Frankie was the vocalist. And they did some shows around the world, and they put out that EP. We had them all on this show together at that point. It was one of our Rainbow LA Invasions. And, it was promising, but same deal happened with that band that I see that happens with just about every one of these kind of supergroups. The guys in the band, if they have other bigger things, they are always going to default and prioritize the main bands that they're in, because that's what makes them money. And that's what, gets them the most amount of people coming out to the shows. It's just, throughout history, that has been the case with these assembled sort of supergroups. Even as you'll hear when I air the John Taylor interview next week, he talks about that a little bit too, because we talk a lot about the Power Station. That was the thrust of the interview. And, Duran Duran was a enormous band at the time. And, eventually he was going to go back, and so was Andy Taylor, going back to Duran Duran, even though the Power Station was very successful when that record came out, and I think it was 85. So it always happens. It happens quicker, I think, based on how successful the side project is. If the side project gets traction and does well and has a hit, then it's likely that the members will hang with it a bit longer. But if it doesn't have a hit, if it doesn't sell records, if it doesn't pull a lot of people at the shows, very quickly, those guys are all going to go back to their respective bands. And, that's just the reality. And with that band, Deadland Ritual, Steve Stevens obviously had Billy Idol. Matt Sorum has a ton of other projects. Geezer Butler has Black Sabbath. I remember saying to Geezer during that interview, you're just coming out of Black Sabbath. You're going to go play clubs at 11 o'clock at night in your 70s? It didn't last, unfortunately, but it was good. The music they put out was good, and Frankie is a phenomenal singer. And, he has a whole nother side to him that's kind of a Latin feel infused rock to some degree, very, very different styles of music kind of mashed up. But he is a phenomenal singer and a great entertainer and great on stage. And he has a band. He's a Vegas native, and he has a band called Frankie and the All-Nighters. I counted everybody on stage at one point. There was when you counted a couple dancers he had up there, there was like a dozen people on stage. Full horn section, keyboard player, bongos, drummer, bass player, guitar player. His guitar player and his friend is Christian Brady, who is a great player and played in Hell Yeah with Vinnie Paul, of course. So there's definitely a hard rock metal connection to Frankie and Christian and this band, although it is absolutely not a metal thing at all. It is, there's elements of rock in it, but it's very dance flavored as well, but with guitar and with a phenomenal band. And again, Frankie's great. I mean, the guy is a super talented guy. Why he is not a household name, I'm not sure. He's worked with, again, a bunch of different people in his career, and he is now committed to making this very Vegas-y show happen. And he's now doing it 2 nights a week, every Wednesday and Thursday, in a club inside the Mandalay Bay called 40 Deuce, which is a small club, but a really cool club. And the arrangement of the stage kind of wraps around, and you're kind of in the show no matter where you sit. Sounded great in there. So I went with my buddy Stoney Curtis last night to check it out. Frankie had invited me the night before. I couldn't make it, but I did go last night, and it was killer. It's a great show. It really was. It is not a hard rock show, although there's certainly some guitar and some rock song covers in it. But if you come to this town and you're looking for something fun to do and a truly live show, that is affordable, which is a huge deal in Vegas right now with prices through the roof. It's a great thing to check out. So I highly recommend it. And again, it's called Frankie and the All-Nighters inside the Mandalay Bay in the Club 40 Deuce. Speaking of affordability, that is a big theme here in Vegas these days, as you know, being pretty much the top tourist attraction around the country, but prices and fees on all these things in this town have greatly decreased some tourism because it's gotten prohibitively expensive for some people, which I totally understand. And, you know, we were talking about tying in with music, these fees that have been removed from ticketing, allegedly, where they can't charge fees or the fees have to be built into the all-in pricing. Well, they are putting fees, and they just to give you an idea of how obscene some of the pricing is on stuff. Certain casinos, certain areas here. There was a 2-drink minimum at this club last night. And Stoney got a Coke, a glass of Coca-Cola. It was $10 for a glass of Coke. And now that's not all. When he got the bill, there was an additional like $3 added in fees. So out the door for a glass of fountain soda, it was like $13. This is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the fleecing of people in certain areas and certain casinos, venues, hotels, anywhere in the world, really. It is ridiculous. And in this case, you had no choice because it was a club that instituted this 2-drink minimum deal. But I was telling a couple guys in the band about it afterwards, and they go, we got to talk to them about that because, of course, here's the problem. You know, the band has nothing to do with that. Whatever the entertainer is has nothing to do with that. But that blows back on them. Because even if you go in and you go to a show and you're like, oh, it's only $20 to get in. Great. But then when you sit down, part of the deal is you've got to buy X amount of drinks. Okay, fine. But, oh, by the way, we're going to charge you $13 for a glass of soda. That's just fucked. So I don't know what the resolution is. You know, at least here in this town, the locals casinos have adjusted and are doing deals again. But, I always tell people on principle, you shouldn't pay it. But in certain instances, you have no choice. You're stuck. The other night, I ran into a couple friends at the Def Leppard show. I bought a round of drinks. It was like $98 for 3 drinks. It's like, what the fuck? It's like insane. You know, and I'm not one of these people, like, if I go out to an event, I do not have to drink. I have friends that, like, they have to drink. They have to get 5 drinks at a concert or in a sporting event or whatever. I've never been like that. It's indifferent to me. You know, I don't really. So if I'm feeling like I'm being fleeced, I definitely won't do it because it's just stupid. It's principle. Even if you can afford it, it's principle. So I'm not sure where this all ends, but whether it's fees on resort fees or now these fees being tacked on. When I was in LA last week, the hotel I stay in there in West Hollywood, when I check out, there's the cost of the room, and then there was literally like 8 line items under that. Nothing I charged, but all these fees. West Hollywood fresh air fee. Santa Monica Boulevard fee. Southern California palm trees fee. Like, I'm only slightly exaggerating. It was that ridiculous. You have no choice about that. So, I know Kid Rock is fighting on the ticketing stuff. Somebody's got to fight for the other stuff too, because it's just out of control. But anyway, all that being said, that can diminish your interest in going to a venue or going to see a band when the band has nothing to do with it, but the venue is fleecing you. It's just crazy. And that trickles down in attendance and people turning up and shows making it or not, because eventually the word gets out. You don't want to go to something and feel like you walked out and got fleeced. Again, the band, it's nothing to do with this stuff. In most cases, they don't even know about it. But it hurts them, obviously, because it hurts their draw. But anyway, all that being said, go check out the show if you happen to come to Vegas. I think you'll like it, and wanted to mention that. Also, if you were listening to the show yesterday, I've gotten pretty good at reading through the tea leaves. There is so much, as I've been saying on a regular basis, so much absolute nonsense on the internet. So much absolute fake clickbait, exaggerated, ridiculous headlines everywhere, all over the internet, every second, every day. 1,000 times worse now with the advances of AI and people. I mean, every day I'm going online and I'm seeing, these made up photos, made up scenarios, all this stuff. It's just, I just click right by it. It's so silly. But, there's a lot of people, a lot of free time doing that stuff, whatever. But the clickbait stuff, the headline stuff, it's amazing. And what really amazes me is when people, some really reputable outlets that will also take headlines and put them everywhere to get clicks without really, giving full context to what's going on. So yesterday, all the rage everywhere you looked, and we talked about it yesterday, was Steve Perry returning to Journey. And if you go back and listen to yesterday's show, I completely broke that down. And I said, to me, this is basically what I've said was this was a lot about nothing. And I'd be shocked if Steve Perry was going back to Journey. And I told you the story about 9 years ago when he was on this show and what happened. And I don't think he has any interest in going back to Journey. And frankly, to his own admission, he, again, does not have the ability to sing those songs anymore the way people want to hear him. He admitted that on this show 9 years ago, to his credit. So anyway, I said yesterday, I really think, this is a lot about nothing. But what it came from was an interview that Jonathan Cain did where he said Steve Perry was asked, and although he didn't say yes, he never said no. And that he'd like him to come out because it's the final tour, 100 dates, he should pop up. So if you really read the context of what Jonathan Cain said, it was more about him being welcome and they would love to have him, which Neil Schon has said repeatedly as well, even for one song. But doesn't matter. In today's world, internet land, even some of my radio brethren, don't read it for what it is. Don't check the full context. Just run with it. Run with it. Read the headline and run with it. Well, 24 hours later, Steve Perry had to issue a statement to make sure and let everybody know he is not performing with or returning to Journey. He made this statement on his social media and basically, exactly what I said. It's a very nice statement, respectful statement. But again, you had a day yesterday where every internet outlet and radio stations reporting Steve Perry returning a Journey with zero basis of fact. You know, just like not too long ago, you had every news outlet on the planet reporting that Howard Stern was not coming back to SiriusXM, and he is on as we speak and will be here for the next few years. Everyone reported that as fact. All wrong, based on nothing. No repercussions to anybody in the media for doing that. It's crazy. I mean, I'm just laying this out to you as a cautionary tale for you, my audience, to know you've got to be so guarded on what you believe anymore, even if you're seeing it and reading it with your own eyes, because so much of it is just embellished for clicks and attention. So here's Steve Perry's statement in response to yesterday's basically fake news. I'll read it to you if you have not seen it. Steve Perry writes, again, this is on his social media. I've been hearing these recent rumors, and I wanted to speak to you all directly. While I'm always grateful for the love people still have for Journey, the rumors about me rejoining the band are simply not true, and I want to gently put them to rest. I completely understand why people would hope for that. The music we created together means a great deal to me too. But I'm continuing to explore new creative work and really enjoy working on new music that reflects where I am today. Thank you for your continued support throughout the years. Your loyalty has never gone unnoticed, and I am forever humbly grateful. Very nice, respectful statement from Steve Perry, putting that to rest 24 hours after the world basically reported it as something that was happening. And, you know, what I read into when he says new music that reflects where I am today, you know, I think also that's not only from a music direction standpoint, let's be honest, it's from a vocal standpoint. Again, there is no shame in being transparent and honest as an older person later in life that you cannot vocally do what you did when you were 25. Most people cannot. So, you know, unless they're using electronics or fake or tape or tuned down so low you can't even recognize the song. And we talked about Steve Walsh from Kansas a little bit on yesterday's show. You know, I got so much respect for Steve Walsh, the way he handled that situation with his own vocals as he got older. And, you know, again, reading through that statement a little bit, when Steve talks about reflects where he is today, I'm sure that also means, you know, from a vocal standpoint. I asked Steve Perry, sitting across from me in the studio 9 years ago, if he could still sing Journey songs in a respectful way. And he gave a very respectful answer. He said, well, I could try, but it'd have to be way tuned down in a way different key. Something along those lines. That's honesty. That's real. That's transparency. So I think at this point, you know, you've got to give this one up because people just don't stop with this one. Now, all that being said, watch him pop up at a show. All I just said and all he just said in that statement, and the Journey farewell tour starts and like they're in San Francisco or LA, is like, hey, please welcome here to sing one more time with us faithfully, Steve Perry. That wouldn't surprise me either. But I'm just talking about in light of yesterday and where things are at now. All right, so there's that. I mentioned earlier in the week that Bruce Springsteen announced a tour of certain cities where he is going to go out and play with the E Street Band that has a very political slant to it. The other thing about this tour, as we have found out, and look, wherever you are at, and again, we don't do politics on this show, so you know that. But wherever you are at politically, whether you are aligned with the political slant narrative that the artist is pushing, or you are not, I've always believed that if you are an artist that is immensely popular and people love your songs, most will still go to the shows. Now, if you're a club level act or a theater level act, you're probably, really, if you're going to get way political, you're probably really taking a chance here, because if you lose 10% of your audience because of your, position, if 10, 20% don't show up, you feel that at that level. If you're drawing 200 to 1,000 people a night, that hits you. But if you're an artist that sells 20,000 tickets, no problem, in an arena with another 10,000 trying to get in, and 5,000 people aren't going to show up because they don't like what you're preaching on that tour, you're still selling out the show. You see what I'm saying? It's just simple math. So no matter who these artists are, wherever, they land, I think at the end of the day, most people just tune that out, and they just, I just want to go hear Hungry Heart. I just want to go hear Dancing in the Dark. I just want to go hear Jungleland. I don't give a shit. I'll tune the other stuff out. I have friends that are like that with Springsteen. I've heard the same thing with, Roger Waters, Rage Against the Machine, whatever it may be. The, artists that have these positions, I think when push comes to shove, if people care about them, there's going to be a segment that's going to be like, no, I'm not paying to hear that stuff. But I think the majority of people just are going to go and they're just going to tune it out, or they're not going to applaud if they're not in alignment with whatever is being said. And with Springsteen, although there might be some people that might not go, there's enough people that are going to want to go, especially at an arena level, that these shows will sell out. And Springsteen knows that. And Springsteen, the interesting thing with him is he is a guy that very much has this position for the working man, right? Well, he's gotten a lot of blowback in recent years about his ticket pricing. And this started back when he did those shows on Broadway with just him and an acoustic guitar, and they were crazy priced. But they still sold out. Now, as these shows that were just announced start to get pushed out and go on sale, there is major blowback coming in certain circles, because one of the tickets categories to get into these shows, the tickets are priced at a face price of $3,000, just under, like $2,977. A face value. There is, of all places, the website nj.com, newjersey.com, printed an article today roasting him. Now, for a website, for the state website of New Jersey, my home state, to roast the figurehead of New Jersey, they got to be pissed off. But the same writer a couple years ago wrote an article on NJ.com headlined, "Bruce Springsteen doesn't care about you," which is funny when you consider his whole position is caring for the working man. So you make of all that what you will. But the bottom line is they're roasting the guy for charging $3,000 at a certain level ticket. Now, they also went further in the article to say where some artists try to say, well, that's Ticketmaster and I didn't know about that and that's secondary market and all of that. They maintain in the article that he is fully aware that this is the pricing and has signed off on it. Here's what I say about this, and you might be surprised at this position. I don't blame Springsteen for doing that. And here's why. Because that category ticket, again, no matter what you feel, and if you're a Springsteen fan or not, or you're not going to, or I'm going to sit this one out because he's going to preach to me about politics, whatever. There's enough people that are going to want to go that are going to sell the thing out, right? And here's the deal. Those tickets, if he sold those tickets at $500 a pop and put them on sale at that face price, which to me is a lot of money. I mean, again, I'm floored at what people are willing to pay for tickets these days. I wouldn't do it. And in full transparency, again, I say this all the time. I completely admit that in my position, a perk of what I've done for the last 43 years is that I don't have to pay for most shows. Some I do, but most I do not. So I understand that, but that does not mean I don't sympathize with you guys and think about it and, give my thoughts. I buy tickets for my kids, so I still buy tickets. My kids are into this pop world where I got no juice. Anyway, here's why I don't have a problem with him doing that. Because if he priced it at, say, $500, ticket goes on sale, what do you think it gets resold for on your StubHubs of the world? Probably $3,000. Now, some of the artists are in on that upcharge. Some are not, but still, if they're only going to go for that amount of money anyway on the scalp market, why not get it up front? And guess what? If you don't and are not willing to pay $3,000, really simple thing, if you don't want to pay that money, don't do it. Don't do it. No one's got a gun to your head to buy that ticket. Now, I get in principle, especially because Springsteen and his whole persona and the working man and all that shit. I mean, I get it that it's a bad look for him, but he clearly doesn't care. And from an economic standpoint, he knows, just like when he did the Broadway thing and got roasted for charging whatever he was charging to watch him with an acoustic guitar. He knows people are going to pay it. So if you don't like it, you don't pay it. And guess what happens? That $3,000 ticket, as the show gets closer, goes to $2,000, goes to $1,000, goes to $500, and if they're still sitting on it, you're going to get it for $150. Now, that's probably not going to happen with a show of that magnitude, but I'm just saying. Do you understand the logic? You're going to put the thing on sale, start high, and if people don't buy it, watch it drop. But I guarantee you, people are going to buy it. There's a lot of people out there with disposable income. There's a lot of people out there that don't think twice dropping $2,000-3,000 on a concert ticket. And that's who those tickets are catered to. And that goes for every category ticket available. As long as people are willing to pay it, it will never change. So, I get it. I get why they do it. But, it's a bad look. And that's why sometimes these artists will use Ticketmaster or this flex pricing or whatever to hide behind it, make everybody else the bad guy, when in reality, they're participating in the money. And they should participate in the money. It's their show. But you don't have to pay it. But people do. One other quick note here. I mentioned yesterday, we talked about Foo Fighters announcing a new album, and that Dave Grohl, I'd said yesterday, had not done one interview yet in his rebuild coming back over the last couple years. Well, that's changed because he now has done an interview. It was with Apple Music, and in the interview, he did speak about the drummer change in the band with Josh Freese. Josh Freese, who was on this show recently talking about it, he's been pretty vocal giving his take about being booted from Foo Fighters, saying he had never been booted from a band in his life. Again, we have not heard from Dave Grohl at all for a couple years in an interview. Now he has done one, and he was asked by the interviewer Zane Lowe about Josh Freese, and basically said that it was a group decision. It was not made overnight. After a few months, they decided that they just wanted to make a change, and Dave Grohl pointed to the fact that Josh Freese himself said that the Foo Fighters music, he had made some quote at one point, Josh did, that Foo Fighters music did not really move him or resonate with him at times. And Dave Grohl, using that quote, pointing to the fact that Josh Freese may have said it the best as to why they felt a change needed to happen. Josh may have not actually been feeling it, and I guess on the other end, the Foo Fighters weren't really feeling him. So it's not necessarily contentious, but it just kind of feels like they just didn't feel it was working, that he was the right guy. And, they've talked extensively, he did in this interview, about still trying to recover and heal from the loss of Taylor Hawkins and how much they miss him being in the band. Also, one other quick thing, Winger, the latest band that said they were done and is not done, has added additional shows, including one announced today in Indiana. So again, NBEE, you know what that stands for by now. Winger as recently as last year saying they were done, final show, and they've got about 6 shows, I think, and always new ones coming on board for this year. So not unusual. No band ever ends. Joel, anything you got?
I'll just let you know what new music we've got today. We're going to hear, as we go to break here, we'll hear a new single from Lou Gramm. It's the second single off his upcoming solo record. This track is called Long Hard Look. We'll also hear a track from the new Michael Monroe album, which arrived today. We'll hear something off of the new Part 2 of Youngblood's Idols record, which arrived today. And Gus G released an instrumental track from his upcoming album. It's called Steel Burner.
All right, so fair amount of new music today, and as I said at the top of the show, there's not a lot going on, and I just ate up 38 minutes. Sorry, man. You guys know I get going. I don't know where I'm going. You never know where it's going to go. All right, so with that, let's get a break, and we will come back, and we will turn over the rest of the show to you here on a Free For All Friday.
That's what I want to get rid of. Sirius XM's Faction Talk. Back to Free For All Friday.
Quite popular with the metal crowd.
Where no topic is off limits. Here's your host, Eddie Trunk.
When Eddie speaks, the world listens.
Sirius XM's Faction Talk.
Okay. We are back. And we, of course, are talking rock with you as we do each and every weekday live in the 3 to 5 Eastern window. Free For All Friday officially starts now. We are coming off of yesterday, which was the Dual Threat show. If you got some of that, it's good. If you got anything else, it's all good as well. We begin in Pennsylvania. Mike is our first caller today. What's going on, Mike? Oh, wait,
Hi,
there
Eddie.
we go. Now we got him. Hey, Mike, we got you.
Hi, Eddie. I was just, two names that didn't come up yesterday. I don't think they did. 2 bass players, Doug Pinnick and Phil Lynott.
Doug did, Phil did not.
All right.
But I would agree with you on Phil Lynott. Now, again, Phil Lynott had a phenomenal voice, a very cool voice, and he was a great songwriter. I've never heard him talked about in the conversation of like amazing bass players. He was certainly a fine bass player, but you know what I'm saying? Just when we did this yesterday, it's not just, I mean, there's a ton of people obviously that do two things, sing and play an instrument, but it's about people where you sit there and you say to yourself, oh my God, I can't decide which one I like more because they're so good at both. So I don't know if Phil checks those boxes. I don't know if Doug checks those boxes, quite honestly, but they are both very good at what they do. I'm not a musician enough to know. I just know from what the common feeling is, and that's why I don't think they came up as much as people would have thought.
Yeah.
All right, Mike. Thank you. Appreciate it, man. Here's another Mike in Pennsylvania. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was wondering why you weren't responding to me the last call.
Like 2 in a row.
Like, what?
Crazy.
Yeah. How about it? Yeah. So I definitely want to. It is a very big state. It's right next to Jersey. You know all about it.
Right.
So I wanted to give you my double threat. But before that, I also remember you guys were talking. You had one episode where it was, I guess, 5 people should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or something like that.
Snubs, yeah.
Yeah, the snubs. I'm thinking for that one, Queensryche, just because of their influence on progressive metal genre. I mean, they weren't huge like a Bon Jovi or whatever, but they were pretty big.
Not happening. I mean, again,
probably not.
Again, that's not my position. I'm just telling you how they think. Not even in the conversation, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. But if there was more of a metal Hall of Fame, maybe they could put them in there.
Right. Well, actually, I'll go one further, Mike. If there was actually a true rock Hall of Fame, like that was just truly relegated to rock, then some of these bands that have been snubbed forever would have been there already, and then you would be at a point where you'd be talking about the Queensryches of the world. But we don't have that. So until we do,
this is the Popular Music Hall of Fame. Is what it evolved into.
And when you dilute it with all the other genres, it takes away from those other deserving acts in the genre that it's named after. And that was one of the things that I respected so much about Dolly Parton when a few years ago she was nominated and she publicly said, take me off of it because I want to leave a slot for an actual rock band. I mean, I went crazy that day in a good way in praise of Dolly Parton, and they wouldn't take her off and they still put her in. It was crazy. So, but that's the mentality there.
It is. So my double threat, in my opinion, one of my favorite, I should say, maybe. There is no scientific best, but Ty Tabor, guitar player, singer from King's X. I think he sings like an angel. I mean, crazy.
So that's more of a favorite for you. That if you had a favorite dual threat, Ty is your guy.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's very talented as both a singer and a guitarist. Anybody that listens to him, I think, would agree.
Absolutely. And thank you, Mike. But again, I don't think he was not even the primary lead singer in King's X. Although he did sing lead vocals on some of their songs, he was not the primary singer. So that to my point. That's what I'm saying. Mike came at this a little different way. His favorite. Now that's fine. That's a different way to frame it. But I think yesterday it was more about the people that are so great at both. You don't know what you like better. It is personal, so it is valid, whatever you want to say, but yesterday's was more coming from a place of like virtuosos in both things. And I think it's hard to say someone is a virtuoso in singing when they're not even the primary lead singer in their own band. So that's my point there. But if you're talking from a personal taste thing, that's totally fine. The interesting thing about Ty in King's X is, he sang a song or two on every record, but again, Doug did the lion's share of the lead vocals. And, it's always been a little bit of a hot button with those guys or with Doug, because the biggest song King's X has in their catalog in terms of airplay and streams, at least last I checked, is a song called It's Love, which was sung by Ty Tabor. So it's one of those cases where the guy who is not the lead singer in the band, on one of the songs he did sing lead on, is the band's most popular song. Now, Over My Head is probably up there pretty high for King's X as well, which is which is a song that Doug sings. But, the other scenario where that happened was in Heart. Because statistically, streaming-wise, I'm pretty sure the biggest Heart song, believe it or not, is These Dreams, sung by Nancy Wilson. Same scenario. Ann Wilson, the primary lead singer in Heart, extraordinary voice. Nancy with a song or two on every record, but not the primary lead singer. And the biggest song is a song sung by that second singer. Now that I think about it, you might also make that argument. I know we're going down a totally different rabbit hole here with Kiss, because it's pretty close, but for a long time, chart-wise at least, the biggest Kiss song was Beth, sung by Peter Criss. Now, Peter sang a lot of lead vocals on Kiss songs, but was not the primary lead singer. It was always Gene and Paul sharing that. Now, Kiss claims that from a streaming standpoint, I Was Made for Loving You is now their biggest song. But chart-wise, when the songs were released, to this day, the highest charting Kiss song was Beth, which, of course, there was controversy about recently with Gene Simmons' comments saying Peter didn't write the song. Matt in Florida. Go ahead, Matt.
Hey, Eddie. Pleasure to speak to you, man. How's your day going? Good,
thank you. What's going on, man?
Awesome. I tried to catch you yesterday, but I got two for my dynamic duo. Number one has got to be Michael Sweet from Stryper. I mean, he's the best guitar player in that band. I love Oz, I do, but Michael is just greatness. And the other one I got on Valentine's Day this past weekend, I took my wife and we went and saw Night Ranger in Melbourne, Florida. Tickets were $50. It was in a small place called the King Theater. And I tell you what, Kelly, everybody loves Night Ranger. It's one of those bands. I mean, there was people in there from 70 years old to 30 years old. Everybody loves Night Ranger. But when you think about all those great songs and the biggest ones, Sing Me Away, Sister Christian, Kelly, he sounded awesome. I mean, great. What a great show. They performed, got 71 years old. Jack Blade, 71 years old, running back and forth across the stage. Night Ranger was great.
Yeah, no, they're always great. They've been that band. Thank you, Matt. That band has been a great live band from day one. I saw them on their first tour, and I still see them on a regular basis now, and they are always great live. And they've got great songs, great players, great singers. And yes, in their early 70s, they still work that stage. And, Kelly, remember something about Kelly. He had a heart attack. He had a heart, I don't know if he had a heart attack, but he had a major heart operation. So that guy, Jack had a heart thing too, if I'm not mistaken. So those guys came out the other side of that even stronger, which is crazy. Here's Nick in Ontario. Go ahead, Nick. You're in Canada?
Hey, yes, brother. How are you?
Hey, good, Nick. What's going on?
Listen, man, I just wanted to give my opinion for the duo Threat. I'm not sure if it's a big band of yours, but Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails. In recording albums, he does absolutely everything himself. It's classically trained pianist. I did catch Nine Inch Nails a couple of nights ago in Hamilton, Ontario as well, and they put on one hell of a live show, man. They use the next-gen technology on lighting and, like, the stage theatrics and whatnot, and they are fantastic. He's a hell of a musician. Plays every single instruments on the albums he records. Can't do it live, but I love Trent Reznor. I think he does it amazing.
Yeah, Nick, that is a great call. And probably somebody, and thanks, Nick, probably somebody that gets a little overlooked on this show just because it's, a little different than straight down the middle hard rock, which I think most of my audience kind of gravitates towards. But that's a great call. I can't argue with that at all. Trent does everything and is certainly brilliant at what he does. And he would be more than just a dual threat. He'd be like a quadruple threat easily. He's just he's crazy. Here's Steve in California. Go ahead, Steve.
Hey, Eddie. Thanks. I've been geeking out on UFO a little bit lately, and as you can probably relate, specifically I look at the Phenomenon album, and I'm fascinated by Michael Schenker coming into the band and how that changed their sound and then how the whole album came together. And I was thinking about that old show on VH1 Classic that had it was called like Classic Albums, and they'd go track by track through those. I think it'd be cool for you or to do a show like that. It doesn't have to be Phenomenon, which I would enjoy, but any album that you could go track by track and talk with the producer or a member of the band and kind of do a deep dive on any of these classic albums would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea, Steve. I never really thought about doing something like that. I know exactly what you're talking about because I remember that show. It was produced in England, actually, and they just aired it at one point. But going track by track with stories about a classic record with an artist that was a part of it, that would be kind of fun. I would love to do that if the opportunity presented itself and there was a way that I could put that together. I could easily do UFO and any of the classic records because I love the band so much, but I think to keep that interesting for most of the audience, you got to do that with a real mainstream record with people know most of the songs on it. Because if you do a record or a band that's not all that well known or didn't have huge hits, it's kind of, you're going to lose people. They're going to tune out on that because it's not going to be relatable to them. But if you did a record, if you did Toys in the Attic by Aerosmith, or you did, Appetite for Destruction, obviously everybody's going to be on board for that. So you got to find a way to do it with, I think, a big record.
Yeah, that producer of that album and the next couple UFO albums, Leo Lyons, he's still, I looked him up, he's about 83 years old. He was still active even a couple of years ago with his 10 years after. He was in the band 10 years after. He'd be cool for a producer spotlight, too, if he's still viable, or if you got even Phil Mogg on or something like that to talk about it. But I just think that's a good album because they changed their sound so much, and they got Michael Schenker came on, and how they released the singles on that one and the track order and all that stuff. It'd be kind of interesting to me. So.
Yeah, no, for sure. Thank you, Steve. For people that are UFO fans like myself and Steve, most look at the Phenomenon album as their first album because it was not their first album. It was actually their third. But the two albums previous were real trippy, very different guitar player. They called it space rock. It was kind of like psychedelic at times. I don't really even know those records. I also consider the beginning to be Phenomenon. And that's when Michael came in as a very young kid on guitar. And that album includes the song Dr. Doctor, which is one of their biggest songs and is still to this day used by Iron Maiden as their basic opening song. And speaking of Phil Mogg, UFO's lead singer, he is likely going to join us sometime in the next month or so because there is another UFO reissue coming out. And I believe it's for Wild, Willing, and Innocent, one of the Chapman records, which I love. So somebody hit me up about it a week ago and said, would you have him on? I'm like, yes. So that, I don't know if we'll be able to do a track-by-track thing with him, but he will be on likely with us. Last time we had him on was when he did that Moggs Motel record. The problem with getting an artist to do something like that is that most artists, I'd say 90% of the time, do interviews because they need to sell something or want to make awareness for something or promote something. It's very rare that you can get an artist that is, not on a promo campaign promoting a tour, an album, an item of some sort to just come on and shoot the shit. Very hard. I wish more did. And I'm not just talking about this show. I'm just talking about interviews in general. Most artists don't want to do interviews. Just like most of them don't want to do meet and greets. They do meet and greets because they're getting paid for them now with these VIPs. They do interviews because they need to get the word out on something and sell something. So it's very hard. And sometimes, it's really hard because the managers or the publicists or whatever can be totally overbearing or over controlling and just, so calculated about when they do things and how they do things, instead of just sometimes the best conversations for me from where I sit are just hanging and talking. And yeah, if you got something to sell, of course, get it in. But some of the best things are when an artist is out of cycle and not on a promo junket where they're just relaxed and recharged and just kind of hanging, talking about their career. And that can resonate more with an audience and make that audience still buy their stuff. Maybe they weren't a big fan of the artist, but became one because they heard them in that context. It always makes me laugh when I approach anyone about an interview, meaning an artist rep, and they're like, well, they're not really promoting anything right now. Perfect. Let's do it then. But that's just not how it works. And, even if they're not in a promo cycle for something, I'm always going to make sure the stuff gets the proper push throughout the course of the conversation. But it's just hard, sometimes managing some of this stuff. I'm telling you guys, the best part of my day every day is with you guys, these 2 hours that we have. Not joking. It's the other 10 hours in the day or whatever that is makes me pull whatever hair's left on my head out. And that's the truth. I hear from you guys all the time, people saying, hey man, thank you. That 2 hours I have with you every day on the air, that's my escape, get away from stuff, forget about stuff. Guess what? Same for me. It's when I turn this microphone off and then go back on the email and texts and phone calls and managing all the other stuff. That's the work. You've heard that from artists as well who tour, right? Hey, the hour and a half on stage, that's the best part of the day. It's the other 12 hours in the day that's the travel, the getting there, whatever. So, but we do the best we can and make it work somehow. All right, with that, how about we take a quick break here? We will come back. Joel's got something new to play for you. I don't know what it is. What is it, Joel?
We're going to hear new Youngblood here.
All right. We had Youngblood on recently, and he kind of surprise dropped a new album today, a sequel to his previous album, Idols. This is an EP. Is it called Idols 2?
The way it's being listed on streaming, it's like Idols Complete. and they dropped it like separately as an EP on like vinyl as Idols 2. So I'm not sure. I think a little bit of both ways.
So it's basically, you look at it as an expansion or songs that didn't make the original record. He had mentioned this when he was on with us. So this was done, I believe, at the same time he did that album, which was about a year ago at this point. All right.
I'm just talking experience that I've seen happen over the years.
Sirius XM's Faction Talk. Now back to Free For All Friday, where freedom of speech is mandatory.
And that's what rock and roll is all about.
Here's your host, Eddie Trunk. Faction
Talk. We were just talking during the commercial break, myself, Joel, and Chris, who's doing our phones today. Like, what ever happened? It's just random thought came up a week or so ago too. What ever happened? Does anybody know what ever happened to Greta Van Fleet? I mean, I know the guitar player did a side band, but they seem to have gone off the grid, and they reached arena level at one point. I mean, wondering what went on, what's gone on there. Just curious. Joel, Google that. See if there's any articles on it or anything that you see. I'm curious. I brought it up on the show a couple weeks ago, and they've just gone totally quiet.
Yeah, I think it came up during the new bands show. We were like, they were so hot for a second, and then, like you just said, quiet. And yeah, even just, looking around real quick, there's nothing coming up news-wise for them, anything recently.
Yeah, I don't know if they broke up. I mean, I think if they broke up, they would have said something, but they just kind of quietly just disappeared. It's strange. I mean, because they, like Joel said before, he goes, well, you always say, go away and come back and you'll be bigger, and that is true. But they were still on the ascent. They're a young band. They're 10 years into their career or whatever. Wonder if there was some drama or something. I mean, they didn't make any sort of public statement, right? Nothing that we saw or
no,
heard
there's
about.
Nothing there. The last thing that I'm seeing is, Jake's new band, Mirador, was the last thing that happened. But who knows? Maybe he went that route because something was going on with the band.
Yeah, well, and which is cool. The stuff I heard from that band, I liked. I actually liked it better because I was, as much as I was rooting for Greta Van Fleet, and they certainly got far. They got a little out there for me. It wasn't really my thing. But think about all the stuff they did. I mean, they reached their own sort of almost arena level at some points in some markets. They had all those shows opening for Metallica and everything. I mean, they were like the darlings. It's funny because, again, they had such a major Zeppelin comparison. And I was watching an old thing on YouTube about the 88 Monsters of Rock tour, and Kingdom Come, of course, were the first band on that bill. And there were some interviews with some of the guys in the band at that time, and all they were doing was basically trying to deflect from the Zeppelin comparisons. And I'm like, the Kingdom Come thing, Kingdom Come really was the 80s version of Greta Van Fleet. It's just really crazy.
Okay, so there's
Wes.
definitely... Oh, I was going to just quickly say there's definitely nothing going on with them because their website is still... The lead caption on their website is Starcatcher out now, which came out in 2023.
Yeah, it's just odd that a band that got pretty darn big, nobody has talked about that either. Like, there's no statement, there's nobody said they're done, nobody said they're not done. They just, like Chris said, they just disappeared. It's just odd. All right, go ahead, Wes. What do you got?
Hey, Eddie. I was at that 88 Monsters of Rock at Candlestick, and I remember there were people holding up Kingdom Clone signs while they were playing. I'm sure they didn't appreciate that, poor guys. But
yeah, the Kingdom Come thing was an interesting thing in that, and I was, of course, in radio at that time. That song, Get It On, was so great sounding on the radio. And people loved the song, even though they felt it was blatantly Led Zeppelin, that they looked past it just because it was undeniable. The sound, I think Bob Rock did that record. The sound, the whole song, it just grabbed them. Like everybody was like, yeah, Zeppelin ripoff, but it's so cool. We're loving it. But it died like it was one song and done, because then it was just like, no, I'm not going to continue to support a band that's so blatantly Led Zeppelin. And they just never followed it up. Greta Van Fleet was the same thing, but it was different in that they were embraced for it and it wasn't held against them at all. And they built and had a much longer run, and what their future is, we just don't know, but it's interesting.
Yeah, that's that generation. They're not shopping Tower Records like I was, getting into metal in the 80s and then buying Led Zeppelin records. And so sometimes maybe I feel like these Beta Grand Fleet bands didn't do that, and they think they're hearing some amazing thing, so, but I wanted to throw up Peter Criss, because I know you mentioned him earlier. Did you say he was a dual threat? Or
well, no, only in the fact that he was not, although he sang a lot more Kiss songs than people realize, he was not the primary lead singer in the band.
Oh, okay. Well, that's why I was gonna, because I was listening to yesterday, and I thought Peter Criss would be like an obvious one for me. I'm a drummer. He got me into drums in the '70s. I used to pretend I was playing 100,000 years, and then when my parents got me a kit, I obviously was into Bonham, Neil Peart, Chad Smith is one of my all-time favorites. I saw Buddy Rich live, and I'm telling you, in the drumming community, Peter is loved. There's an interview with Chad Smith, and he's given lots of love to Peter Criss, saying he had lots of swing. And so he brought, he was not the John Bonham hard rock. He brought like this Motown shuffle groove thing to the to the Paul and Gene hard rock songs, and it worked and it popped, And so I really want to defend his drumming as a drummer, and like Come On and Love Me. He puts that little hi-hat sizzle, on the Come On. He didn't write that out in sheet music, but he just felt it because he plays from the heart. And so he's a great drummer, and every time he sang, it made the album better. Kiss, sorry, Gene and Paul, Kiss wouldn't be Kiss if it wasn't for Peter Criss's, Beth, and so I think he brings it every time, singing and playing, and so I would like to defend him as a dual threat. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, all valid points, Wes, and I don't disagree with anything you're saying. And thank you, Wes. I think Peter, he was and is somewhere around 7-8 years older than anybody else in Kiss. He was the oldest guy. Peter is 80 now, I believe. And as a result of that, and we talk about this often, drummers get hurt the most with age, most of them, because it's physical and because they have issues with their hands, their joints, their elbows, their shoulders, and it impacts their playing. So I think, that Peter was dealing with a lot of that stuff, I know for a fact, later in his career when he was touring, and it did impact his playing. It impacted how he played and how hard he could hit. From the reunion tour forward, really. But that should take nothing away from what he did. And I agree with Wes 100% about what he brought to those records. The fact that he was not a hard rock guy is what made what he brought to those records so special and unique and such an extra, part of the secret sauce of what made Kiss so great to people who love Kiss. There was a swing and there was a groove and there was just something that was coming from a different place that complemented those songs. Peter's whole background was in jazz. He loved Gene Krupa was his hero. So bringing that into a hard rock band, it's a completely different thing. And if you go watch old videos of Peter Criss with Kiss, like in the mid-'70s, he was a monster drummer, and vocally, some say that one of the best voice, if maybe the best voice in the band, but he was not the lead singer. He was on certain songs. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying the bulk of the songs in Kiss. Just like Ace was not the lead singer in Kiss either. He was on a lot of songs, but he wasn't the primary lead singer. Gene and Paul always were. But yeah, I mean, you could say the same thing. People say the same thing about Steven Adler in Guns N' Roses. That there was a swing and a way, and there is a way that Adler, or at least was when he was in Guns, played that made those songs and put them over the top in that sort of approach to drumming. Yeah, I remember watching Steven Adler play with Dave Grohl standing next to me and Dave nudging me and going, there's nobody else that can create that vibe in Guns N' Roses than this guy. You know, just a few years ago, I think it was at one of the Dio concert things, the charity things. So yeah, there are those guys that, you know, you don't think of them as these technically, you know, Neil Peart, Mike Portnoy, John Bonham, whatever. You don't think in those terms, but super important to what Charlie Watts would be another one. Phil Rudd would be another one. Those guys in their simplicity did something that just was irreplaceable. Well, we know it's replaceable. It's just not the same. By the way, I saw on social media, there's one of these accounts on, I don't know if it was X or Instagram, when it loaded up on my page, it was footage of Kiss in 96 rehearsing for the then reunion tour. They're out of makeup. They're in a rehearsal studio. It's just black and white footage. I think Tommy Thayer shot it. Some of it ended up being on that video that came out back then called Second Coming. But there's a bunch of stuff that didn't make it into there that's now showing up online. Really cool. You're watching them with Ace and Peter back in the band, working through, 100,000 years, working through Watching You. Ace doing 2000 Man again, going up and singing. Peter trying to figure out and remember what parts he sings and doesn't sing. Really, really cool. Let's grab our Friday, Mr. Friday special. Saha, Long Island. Here he is, exclusive to Fridays on call-ins. What's up, buddy?
Eddie, thanks for taking my call as always.
You got it, bud.
Yeah, Richard Christie. I hope you're doing your homework on getting Eddie to promote his doc on Stern. Baba Booey gave him a mention a couple weeks ago, so that's a good thing.
I heard that. What did Gary? Hold on, Saha. What did Gary say? I heard that I got a mention on Howard. It was it because I saw Gary at the Steven Tyler thing?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, he said
okay.
You ran into him and he spoke to you for a few minutes there.
Yeah, it was good to see him. Yep, he was there, and Ross Zapin, who works for the company, was there. It was good to see those guys. That was a couple weeks ago. All right, cool. I heard about that, but I didn't hear it myself. And by the way, Saha, before you continue, I spoke to Jeremy Simmons, who is doing my documentary yesterday with an update on the doc. And it is, he has about a 65-minute version of it. So it's not done yet. He's still editing. It's probably going to come in closer to 90 minutes when it's done, maybe even 2 hours. And, we're still may need to add some things, and we're still looking for some stuff. We're trying to find some footage now of me in old radio shows that I did. If there's any video of it, I had some friends that had early video cameras, trying to source some of that. And the biggest thing is we're trying to get some music in it, which is very expensive, and we don't have a lot of money to put music in it. So we're trying to get some favors from some of these artists that I've played their records for 45 years. Maybe they'll do a solid and let me use 30 seconds of a song, but sometimes the artists themselves don't own the song, so they can't. So the music stuff is super complicated for whatever music we end up putting in it, but fingers crossed we'll, have something by the end of the year.
All right, well, just make sure I'm at the premiere at the Chinese theater in LA with the big spotlights going in the sky and all that ET Entertainment today.
Man, you got great You have great aspirational goals for this, Saha, and I truly hope that the stuff you're talking about becomes reality, man. I like the way you think, but I'm a little more realistic, but we'll see.
Oh, man. Good stuff. Yeah, it was a couple of things. I was waiting on Roz. Where's Roz been? On like a all-female like dynamic duo. I was like, we haven't heard that yet.
No, she's been quiet lately. I'm not sure where she's at, but yeah, that's a good point.
Come on, Roz.
She might be trying to get through right now.
Yeah, I'm taking up her time.
Exactly.
Two snubs that I don't think were mentioned this week, but have been mentioned before. Jane's Addiction and Sonic Youth, who I think have both been on the ballot before.
For the Hall of Fame.
And I wanted to ask you about this Alex Van Halen, Steve Lukather thing. I don't know. I have a little bit of a problem with it. If they're pushing this as a Van Halen album, I just think it can turn into a total shit show and just kind of ruin the music that Eddie had been working on previously.
Well, I don't know what they're going to sell it as. I don't know what they're thinking or what the positioning of it is going to be and what they're going to tell people it is. And thanks, Saha. I don't know. I think it's too early. And I don't, we know vocals, according to this interview that Alex Van Halen did, are not going to be either Roth or Hagar. So it seems pretty incomplete. And he's having Lukather fill in the holes on guitar, but we don't know. I guess they had said in this interview that the guy that they had thought about having sing was Paul Rogers, but, Paul's not in the best of health and was not able to do it. So I don't know. But there's certainly been a lot that came out of this interview that Alex Van Halen did with this outlet in Brazil, which we talked about the other day, including some discussion about that record. And he was asked about, in the interview, why the book ignored the Hagar period. And he says in the interview that that's just where the publisher said, okay, that's the meat of the story, let's end it. And he said that that doesn't necessarily mean that if people don't want it at somewhere down the line, there couldn't be a part 2 that would cover the Hagar era of the band, which is what I said at the time when there was all that controversy about that book and where it ended and it didn't include Sammy, whatever. That, it easily sets up for a sequel if they end up doing that. I still got to try to get Sammy on with this residency in Vegas starting in a couple of weeks. So whether we do it in person while he's here or try to do it in advance on the phone, he said he wanted to. I was in touch with his manager as well. Again, just trying to wrangle some of this stuff. Like I said, that's the hardest part of my day. But, of course, Sammy's a friend. Michael was in touch as well. He was here. He left. But they're all coming back to Vegas in like a week or so. Now, we're going to have Joe Satriani on next week with Steve Vai. So next week, we already have, looks like it's confirmed for Wolfgang Van Halen returning to the show on Tuesday. And so next week, setting up like Wolf on Tuesday, John Taylor, Power Station Duran Duran, and Steve Vai and Joe Satriani together, looking like guests already lined up for next week. But we'll get Sammy and or Michael in there at some point. It'd be great to get them in studio in Vegas when I'm back here and they're here. I'm leaving here next Wednesday, doing the gig in Boston next Thursday. Remember that, folks. That's for charity, for a great cause. Next Thursday, I'll be at the Lansdowne Pub in Boston hosting the Ultimate Shredder contest. And then don't forget, if you're in Ohio, I am coming your way for some speaking shows. And those shows are March 6th at the Winchester in Lakewood and March 7th at Tuck and Reds in Yellow Springs, both of those in Ohio. So hitting the road, and then, so basing out of the East for a while around that stuff, and then back here for the Sammy stuff, hopefully getting them on with us starting around the 10th or the 11th of March, which his residency, I believe, kicks off the first of two here in Vegas this year. I believe it kicks off on the 10th of March is the first show. Here's Ray in Maryland. Hey, Ray, I've got more stickers for you. They've been in the backseat of my car for about 3 weeks. As soon as I get to the post office, I'm going to drop them out to you.
Sounds good, man. I'm still in the biz for you.
I appreciate it. Man, I know you said you wanted them. I have them. I just haven't gotten to the post office, but I will soon.
Yep. Good deal, man. But I'd better get one of those invitations to the red carpet premiere of the documentary with Saha. If Saha shows up, I definitely should be there.
Oh, right. That's right. And what did he say? There's going to be those searchlights going that's going to say E.T. in the air and all that. Yeah. I love the way that guy thinks, man. I wish he was a talent agent. I'd hire him immediately. He thinks big, man. I like the way he thinks.
I'm thinking Saha and I'll team up, and we'll be your representatives, man. We got you.
Couldn't get better reps than that, man. I wish I had an agent like that in my career. It's amazing.
Right on, man. Hey, dude, I'm going to bring my top 5 dual threats. And first of all, I got to give a shout out to my buddy Leslie in Austin. And she's called this idea in a few times, and she's been on it. So, and I love Leslie. Leslie, aloha. And so I wanted to give her props on it. But man, you're cool with honest, open opinion and stuff like that. I have a little bit of a critique about your. I think you've made the criteria a little too tight for your dual threat rules. Only because, especially the singing part, like somebody called in Geddy Lee. You were like, well, yeah, I like him, but he's not that. But to somebody, that's their greatest singer on the planet. And it's almost like you kind of tightened it up to where it had the dual threat had to play like Yngwie and sing like Pavarotti, or play like Eddie Van Halen.
Well, here's the thing, Ray. Ray, you're right. I agree. But here's the thing. And I think here's the distinction. I think that it's two different things. So it's almost two different shows. It's your favorite, or what you think, or what kind of is perceived as the best. So if it's your favorite, if it's just comes down to personal taste, we had somebody earlier that said Ty Tabor. That's great. That's his favorite. But again, Ty is not the primary singer. If you want to go with Rush, there's going to be people that love Geddy Lee's voice that don't. I was thinking more like universal, people that are considered virtuosos and not personal tastes in their respective areas. So I almost think it's two different shows. The next time I do it, I think it would be better, to your point, to frame it as your favorite dual threat. And this way, you can have those people in there like that. I think that's probably just in the wording of it.
Yeah, but you even said what's perceived worldwide. That's still perception. So it's like, I don't know. There's a little. I think it should be a little looser as far as subjectivity.
And I think the way to do that is just to say your favorite. What is your favorite?
So. Yeah, you're right.
And then it just becomes total subjective.
That's true, because somebody's favorite might be Lemmy Kilmister. Somebody's favorite might be Kronos from Venom. I mean, who's to say? Right.
100%. Well, Lemmy, exactly. Lemmy's a great example. Lemmy is a guy that was nobody would sit there and say is a great singer, but is to you or to me or to somebody, you might love his voice and what he does. So there you go. Somebody might not think Keith Richards is a great singer. Nobody would sit there and tell you he technically is a great singer, but that just might be your taste. Ace Frehley, same thing. Never thought of as a great singer, but people love his character and his voice on the songs. So I think I agree with you that that's where kind of the lane is. And the next time we do it, it should just be framed as your favorite.
Yeah, that's fair enough, and I agree with that because a lot of people were, batting it around on the fan page last night, and it's like, yeah, and they were like, why does Eddie say that this one doesn't count or that one doesn't count? I was like, well, first of all, it's his fucking show. Let's over with that. But yeah, you're right. That does sound like two different shows. I get what you're saying.
And at the end of the day, let's be honest. Whether people are talking about people discussing and debating it online, that's good. I mean, that's good. That should happen. Agree, disagree, and the same on the air. But at the end of the day, it's all opinion and subjective anyway. There's no right or wrong. I was just trying to get to the virtuoso guys, my initial thought was the guys that you look at and you're like, wow, how can they do both things so well? And, if you take somebody like Lemmy, nobody is saying that about his voice. But if you love that voice, then that's your guy. That's why I look at it as two different things.
Yeah, fair enough, man. But I just figured I'd throw it out there to you, and I'm going to give you my top five. And I know my top two check all both boxes that you're talking about. The others are a little subjective, but I think certainly dual threat forces. My number 5 is Jerry Cantrell, and I love his guitar playing. I love his singing. He's always been at least 50% of Alice in Chains' singing. I think he sounds great on his solo stuff, too. Number 4, I'm going to give some female representation because Lzzy Hale might not be a virtuoso on the guitar. She's really good at playing it, but her voice is certainly a powerhouse, and she's a pianist as well. So I think Lzzy Hale's at least a dual threat. Sully Erna is kind of a quadruple threat. I love Sully's voice. It might not be Jeff Tate or something like that. I think he has an amazing voice. He's a great drummer. He's a decent guitar player, and he's also a pianist. Now, my number 2 and 1, obviously, you're going to be all in on. My number 2 is Glenn Hughes, and my number 1, who I think has the voice of an angel, and he is a virtuoso / shredder, Richie Kotzen.
Yeah, I mean, to me, thank you, Ray. Appreciate it. Keep everybody calm down on that Facebook group. It's just fun. It's good. It's good that it trickles. It's good. The whole idea is to create debate and discussion and agree, disagree, whatever. But I understand the framing of it. And I think the next time we do it, favorite is the word we need. And that diffuses everything. And then you could come with anything you want. But yes, to me, Kotzen, which was his number 1, is an ideal guy in this world because whether you know his stuff or not, his voice is incredible. His guitar playing is incredible. And yes, he's like a 5-time threat because he also plays drums, bass, keys, everything. So yeah, but he's not a household name. So that's why that's not going to come up that much. Glenn Hughes, same thing. Glenn is not a household name, believe it or not. He's just not. I love him. He's a legend, but he's not. But he is an extraordinary bass player, to my point yesterday that Satriani used him only on bass to prove that point. And vocally, he is just, people are just, who do know what he can do vocally still, it's crazy. Here is Oren joining us from New Jersey. Hi, Oren.
Hey, Eddie, thanks for taking my call. I have
sure thing.
I have 5 Rock Hall snubs for you and 1 dual threat. So at the top of my list is Ian Hunter, with or without Mott the Hoople. Obviously, he had a very long solo career, but I'd love to see him in while he's still with us on the planet.
Agreed.
Number 2, Squeeze, long overdue, coming up on a 50-year career, still touring and excellent live, still recording. I think they should be in. 3, Adam Ant, also still putting on great shows. 4, Neil Finn from Crowded House, Split Ends, his solo career. He was even in Fleetwood Mac for a few years there toward the end. And lastly, Joe Jackson, also tremendous career, great musician, still touring and recording.
Yeah, you're honing in, Oren, on all valid stuff, and you're honing in on that certain kind of sweet spot there of like 80s based kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, new wave, pop, whatever.
Yeah, a lot of British.
But all, yeah, British. But, you know, it's funny because we often talk about how a lot of like that 70s Styx, Boston, Meatloaf, up until recently, Foreigner, Journey were snubbed. But you can make the same case, and certainly the 80s hard rock in that from that time, Motley, Rat, etc., snubbed. But you can make the same case for that genre of rock you're talking about, with those acts you're talking about totally being snubbed. That's something I'm really glad you brought up because it hasn't come up before, and you're 100% right.
Yes, absolutely. And my dual threat, speaking of Fleetwood Mac, would be Lindsey Buckingham. Excellent singer, guitarist, songwriter, producer. I think he'd be a shoo-in for that.
Yeah, that's a good one too. And thank you, Oren. Joe Jackson on that list jumps out at me. It's kind of surprised Joe Jackson has not come up and has not gone in yet. This is to the point, and again, people are coming up with the Hall snubs because we did that show recently, and you guys can call in anytime you want on any of the past stuff. But yeah, it's crazy when you think about some of these people that have been snubbed and not been put in, and that is to the point that we've said many times of why people have a hard time with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame being so inclusive now to induct hip hop and all these other genres of music. Because these rock or rock-based artists that have been snubbed forever, it takes away slots from them going in. Look, rock / rock and roll is still a really big umbrella. Just in this show today alone, the bands that got shouted out, everything from Split Ends and Joe Jackson to Nine Inch Nails to Greta Van Fleet to Youngblood, have all been name-checked in today's show alone. That all falls under the rock umbrella. It's all wildly different, but it's all rock. Let's not forget we got a Venom mention today as well. So, you know, just that alone, to my point, you see all the tentacles of stuff you could connect back to rock. So if you had all that stuff, nobody would go crazy about if it ended up in a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But it's, you know, that stuff's not, and then you're bringing in this other stuff under this umbrella. And that keeps those guys even further off the grid from getting a chance to get in. And then they get older, and then they die, and then when they finally get in, they can't be there, you don't see them. As we prove on this show every day, the umbrella of rock is extremely wide if you open it that wide. Now, of course, I completely admit us gravitate more towards a certain segment of it, but we don't exclude the other stuff in conversation or news or even in interviews occasionally. Proven by John Taylor on the show next week. And it's funny, he mentioned Adam Ant. Every time I hear Adam Ant, I think of something that Stephen Pearcy said on this show, which is really interesting. Because I said to Stephen as a frontman back in the day, you had a different look and presence on stage, the way you moved and the way you acted and the way you appeared than others. And your fashion sense and the way you looked, your hair, everything was just a little different. What was the influence? And when he told me the answer, it completely made all the sense in the world. He said Adam Ant. He said he modeled himself in his look after Adam Ant as a hard rock version of him. And if you look at old pictures of Piercy, you can totally see it. Here's Mike in New Jersey. Go ahead, Mike.
Hey, Eddie, thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
So I was kind of torn. I have a couple. I have two topics. I have a brush with greatness, and I also have a Glenn Hughes thing. So I'll let you pick which one you want. I could talk all day on either one, but.
Well, can you do short versions of both of them?
Sure. Okay. So brush with greatness. 1982. You and I are pretty much around the same age. I was my senior year of high school. Friends of mine told me, hey, Ozzy's new guitar player is going to be doing a guitar clinic at Ron's Music City in Greensburg. I said, what? I said, yeah, you should check. Now, I was not completely sold on Randy at the day because, let's face it, Eddie was king. Eddie was the king, period. So I said, let me go check it out. Changed my life forever. So this will lead to a show idea, and hear me out. Met the guy got up and I mean, he was the most angelic human being that you'd ever want to meet.
So you went to it. So hold on, let me just stop you a second, just so I'm clear here. You went to this. You went to a guitar clinic that Randy Rhoads did in New Jersey?
No, it was I'm sorry, I grew up in southwestern Pennsylvania in the Pittsburgh area. I apologize for that. Yeah.
And was he on tour with Ozzy when you went to this?
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. This was in 1982. I want to say this was, I believe it was February. Yes, it was February. So I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. Unbelievable. The guy he got up there, this limousine pulls up, my friends and I are hanging out. We skipped school to do this, mind you. He gets out, and I didn't know what to think. I'd never seen him because you remember, this is before cell phones and MTV and all that stuff. Sure. But we got a chance to ask questions. They set him up with like a clean Marshall half stack and stuff. So some of the guitar people out there listening will appreciate this. So he did his rundown. A lot of guys asked him to play some of the stuff you did with Ozzy, and he played it all clean. Second point. So afterwards, he signed some autographs. I got a chance to meet him, shake his hand. In that same clinic was Paul Gilbert. Now, Paul Gilbert went to, I think he either went to Jeanette or either Greensburg High School. But in any event, I knew Paul Gilbert. I had exchanged numbers with Paul, too, because Paul, he was like the local hero, I guess, at the time, up and coming, because he was in a band called Tau Zero, and the other one was called Giant. And then I kind of fell off the radar with him because at that time we were both seniors. I guess he had gone out to California and did the GID, and then obviously the Racer X thing, and the rest is history. So I was wondering if you could get him, maybe get Paul Gilbert on as a guest, and let me know your thoughts on that. And did you have any contact with him, or have you? I know you mentioned him in a previous show.
Paul was on the show maybe roughly like 2 years ago. Mike, I'm short on time. I got to run. I'm sorry. Thank you for your call, though, and I appreciate it. I get your Glenn Hughes thing in another time. Paul Gilbert was on the show, I don't know, probably like 2 years ago. At the time, Joel has all the dates. April 2023 was Paul Gilbert's last appearance on this show. He was promoting, he had done an instrumental album of all Dio songs, which came out. It's really cool if you guys don't know about it. He does everything. Rainbow, Sabbath, Dio, all instrumental. So he was on with me to promote that. I know Paul. We had him on that metal show, too. He was great on that. He was one of our guest guitar players. He's always welcome to come on. Problem with Paul Gilbert, I don't know if people realize this, Paul Gilbert is extremely hearing impaired. So when he, and this isn't, we could still do this, and I think we did do it. When we had him on, you have to do it visually. So you have to, if it's not face-to-face, you have to do it on Zoom, because he needs to be able to see your mouth move as well, because he's got a real hearing issue. If you notice, when Paul plays on stage, a lot of times he wears big headphones because it's to help protect what's left of his hearing from the stage volume, and so he can hear what's going on going into his ears. So it's not easy for him to do audio interviews, radio, because of his hearing stuff. Let's get Sean in Illinois in here real quick. Sean, we got a minute or two. Go ahead, buddy.
Eddie, thanks, brother. Hey, the guys in Greta Van Fleet, they formed a Kingdom Come tribute band, right?
Funny. Wouldn't that be funny? That would be funny, actually.
Ray stole my thunder, but yeah, Richie Kotzen, my lovely wife and I were so fortunate to be able to see him with Mr. Lowry just in November. But Kotzen could cut down the trees, build you a studio, wire it, write every song, produce the album, and play every instrument on it too. He's the ultimate threat. So, but the point I wanted to make was, congrats on. I'm way behind. I'm catching up on the app. We all have our challenges, but you're doing a great job from what I can see, taking care of yourself. You're always promoting health. The fact that you were talking about Shatner the other day doing a metal album at 95, I would look so forward to that interview. And it's what we always talk about. I brought this up before. When we get to do what we love, it keeps us all young. The freaks category, and especially the point I want to make is it seems to me like the Europeans got this right, okay? And this ties into when you're always talking about people losing their interest in music. Americans, we go into an industry or a factory at 18 years old. We're working our asses off. Music, we love it. It falls off. We have family. We're dead at 60. Europeans have a different style and approach of life, okay? And I'm not bagging on America. I love America. But it's just that, when you get to do what you love and you take things a little bit differently, you live longer, you live a better life, and you also keep the interest peaked at what keeps us young and vibrant. So,
yeah, hey, Sean, I got to jump in there. Hey, buddy, I got to jump. Thank you, Sean. I got to jump in. I got to let you go because I got to end on time at the end of the show. I apologize for cutting you, but you got your point across. I don't know enough about Europeans to know, that, but I agree with your sentiment. All right, thank you very much, and thanks for the call. Thank you to everybody for listening. Sorry if it didn't get to you. Monday, we will be back, and we'll have some open phones then as well, starting at 3 o'clock Eastern as usual. Have yourselves a great weekend. Next week, we're looking at Wolfgang Van Halen, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, and John Taylor among our guests, and a lot of time for your calls as well. We'll talk to you Monday. Have a good one, everybody. Thank you. Let's see, we've got Santana and the Doobie Brothers, a co-headlining tour in amphitheaters going out June 13th through August 27th. So that is what is known in the business as a shed tour. If you have an outdoor amphitheater in your part of the country, you likely might see a date there along those run of that period of time. Of course, Carlos Santana has done a residency here in Vegas forever at the House of Blues. Still continues, by the way, but breaking away from that, obviously, to do a tour. Also announced today, Breaking Benjamin, Chevelle, and Starset on a completely different end of the rock spectrum. A run of dates starting September 2nd through October 24. Mostly amphitheaters, some other venues in there as well. as they get a little later into October. I know the Breaking Benjamin guys. I saw them at Rocklahoma last year. I've done some stuff with them. Great guys, real good band.